Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the totally fascinating story of how a single post-World War II Japanese car factory created a system that literally revolutionized modern manufacturing. Honestly, whether you're building cars, managing a bustling hospital, or writing code, the concepts we're about to explore have absolutely shaped your world. Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the efficiency paradox, see how this whole thing was born out of necessity, explore the core pillars, look at the rise of lean, and finally wrap up with the pursuit of perfection. Let's dive in. Section 1. The efficiency paradox. Two factories, one clear winner. So let's kick things off by imagining a scenario where two identical factories yield drastically different results. You see, for decades, the automotive industry was defined by this massive paradox. Just picture Factory A and Factory B. They're using the exact same machines, right? They've got similar workers, and they use the exact same raw materials. And yet, Factory A, which, spoiler alert, was Toyota for decades, consistently builds higher quality vehicles, wastes way fewer resources, fixes problems faster, and just blows the other out of the water in profits. And the crazy thing? They didn't achieve this by throwing more money at the problem. Nope. Their massive advantage actually came from using the exact same baseline inputs. It's like a giant puzzle. Moving to Section 2, born out of necessity, scarcity as an advantage. To actually understand how they achieved this impossible efficiency, we have to trace it all back to the inciting incident, the devastated economy of post-WW2 Japan. Just look at the sheer contrast here. Over in America, massive companies like Ford were absolutely thriving on the American way, which was all about mass production. We're talking enormous factories churning out millions of identical vehicles just to drive costs down through sheer scale. But the Japanese reality, it was completely different. Factories were destroyed, capital was basically non-existent, raw materials were incredibly scarce, and the domestic market was super small with really diverse customer preferences. Toyota literally couldn't afford to copy Ford's system. They couldn't waste a single resource, so they had to invent their very own playbook. And that extreme constraint led a brilliant engineer named Taiichi Ohno to look at traditional manufacturing and ask this paradigm-shifting question. How do we eliminate everything that doesn't add value? Notice, he didn't ask how to produce more. He asked how to waste less. A real game changer. So instead of just relentlessly pushing for raw output, Ohno basically declared war on these hidden value-draining activities. I mean, things like workers just waiting around, machines sitting totally idle, materials just piling up in massive warehouses, incredibly expensive repairs, and the unnecessary movement of products across the floor. Before this, all of that was just accepted as a normal part of doing business. But Ohno, he saw them as the ultimate enemy of efficiency. Which brings us to Section 3, the core pillars, the framework of efficiency. Let's see how this war on waste actually builds into Toyota's famous framework. Okay, first up is a crucial one, just-in-time production. Now, back then, this was a wildly counterintuitive concept. Traditional factories hoarded massive inventories because they thought, more stock equals more security. But Toyota realized that huge inventory actually just hides mistakes. Think about it. If a machine is spitting out a bad part, thousands of them might literally just sit in a warehouse before anyone even notices. By receiving components exactly when they were needed, inventory stayed super low. And if a problem popped up, boom, it was exposed instantly. To traditional experts, this was absolutely terrifying, like operating without a safety net. But to make it work, Toyota just had to build exceptionally strong, trust-based relationships with their suppliers. Next pillar is Jidoka, which translates to automation with a human touch. And this one flips traditional management completely on its head. In typical factories, managers thought stopping a production line was just an incredibly expensive disaster. So workers just kept building, even if they literally saw a defect. Toyota argued the exact opposite. They firmly believed that fixing one single mistake immediately was way, way cheaper than letting the line run and repairing thousands of defective cars later on. Visually, this was managed through an incredibly cool tool called the and-on cord. Any worker, at literally any time, could pull this cord if they spotted a problem. It would alert supervisors and literally stop the entire production line dead in its tracks. I mean, think about that for a second. In most companies, employees are terrified of pointing out mistakes, right? But at Toyota, finding problems became an expected part of the job. It wasn't about pointing fingers, it was about solving the problem right then and there so it never happened again. Then we have Kaizen, the philosophy of continuous improvement. Toyota never ever assumed a process was perfect. From the assembly line workers to the senior managers, absolutely everyone was encouraged to suggest tweaks. No idea was too small. Kaizen proves that saving just, say, a few seconds on a single task, when you multiply that by millions of repetitions across a factory floor over a year, leads to massive compounding gains. It really wasn't about huge corporate restructuring. It was just relentless daily learning. Finally, the whole shebang is held together by a deep respect for people, codified as Genshi Genbutsu, which means go and see for yourself. So instead of making disconnected decisions from some plush conference room, leaders are forced out onto the actual factory floor. They listen, they observe, and they learn. It completely relies on the trust that the people closest to the work understand the problems way better than anyone else. Facts over assumptions. It's so simple, but it massively reduces costly management mistakes. Moving on to Section 4, the rise of lean, from Japanese factories to global strategy. So, how on earth did this local survival tactic become the defining operational philosophy of the modern world? Let's trace it. Well, this definitely wasn't an overnight global phenomenon. Following the post-WW2 scarcity that originally sparked it, the real global test came during the 1970s oil crisis. As fuel prices absolutely skyrocketed, consumers suddenly wanted smaller, fuel-efficient cars. While Toyota's competitors were stuck in their inflexible, mass production ways, Toyota's system let them pivot rapidly. By the 1980s, the world was really taking notice of their crazy consistent quality and profits. Analysts studied them intensely and eventually coined a brand new term for this magic: lean manufacturing. And today, those ideas born inside those early Toyota factories have spread like wildfire across the entire global economy. It perfectly shows how universal these truths are. When you go to a hospital and actually don't have to wait hours, or when your favorite software app drops a totally seamless update, or when airlines optimize their maintenance, you are seeing lean principles in action. Toyota's war on waste literally impacts our modern lives every single day. Section 5, the pursuit of perfection, adapting the system itself. Now we really have to ask, what happens when this famously low inventory system collides head-on with the chaotic realities of our modern world? I mean, we've recently seen global pandemics, crazy semiconductor shortages, and huge supply chain disruptions, right? And critics were quick to point out that just-in-time inventory could be a massive vulnerability during those crises. But Toyota proved that even successful ideas have to evolve. They essentially applied their own philosophy to themselves. They adapted their rules to balance that intense efficiency with a bit more resilience for their most critical components. It proves that continuous improvement isn't just about tweaking the product. It's about upgrading the system itself. Yet, even with all those shifting global circumstances and operational tweaks, their underlying foundational philosophy hasn't budged. The bedrock remains exactly the same. Eliminate waste, respect your people, solve problems the absolute second they happen, improve continuously, and always, always think long-term. That unwavering foundation is exactly why Toyota has stayed one of the world's most respected companies for generations. So, what you should really take away from this explainer is that Toyota's greatest invention wasn't a car. It wasn't an engine or some revolutionary machine. It was a mindset. It's the profound belief that perfection isn't just something you check off a list and forget about. It's a daily, relentless pursuit. They proved you don't need some magical breakthrough to change everything. You just need to make one better process. Make one smarter decision again and again, until your small advantages become literally impossible for anyone else to catch up to. So I'll leave you with this final thought to apply to your own life and work. As you look at your daily tasks, are you obsessing over finding a magic overnight solution to all your problems? Or are you willing to pull your own andon cord, stop the line, and do the disciplined work of getting just a tiny bit better every single day?